Is the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G still worth buying in 2024? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, and this is the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G. Now, this device was originally launched back in March of 2023, so at this point, the phone is well over 1 year old. So I wanted to make this video to kind of look back on it to see if it's still a worthy option. Now, of course, since this phone was launched, we have also gotten the successor to it, which is the A55 5G, and I'm actually doing a separate video comparing this phone to that phone here on the channel, so definitely stay on the lookout for that video. Now, I'm not gonna lie, going from this generation to the next one was a pretty big jump. I'll just give you a sneak peek right here. Here's the A54 5G, and you can see it's a pretty big jump going from this generation to this generation, especially with the build materials, but I'll save the rest of that for the full comparison. Now, one interesting thing though is that the A54 5G is sold in the US, whereas as of now, the A55 5G is not. And I'm not even sure if there's any plans on actually introducing that phone to the US at all. Now, that phone can still be purchased via Amazon and some other places as well, but it's not actually sold through carriers. On the other hand, the A54 5G was actually sold through a lot of different carriers, and even at the time that you're watching this video, it might still be offered at certain carriers. So I guess what I mean by that is you'll most likely be able to find some really solid deals on the A54 5G, especially if you want to get one lightly used. So definitely one of the biggest selling points for this phone at this point in 2024 definitely is to be that it is very affordable, and you're actually getting a pretty solid handset here for the money. This phone is very feature packed, especially considering that it is a mid-range device from Samsung. Now, with the Galaxy A54 5G, we are getting a 6.4-inch display, and it does feature Corning Gorilla Glass 5, so that does make it extra durable. The display itself features Super AMOLED technology, and it does also have a 120Hz refresh rate. So a super smooth refresh rate here with the phone, and combining that with the excellent looking display really makes this phone feel a lot more expensive and premium than it really even is. I especially like how fantastic the colors are, along with the great viewing angles too with this device. Now, in addition to that, the resolution of the display on here is 1080p, so super crisp and clear. We're getting a PPI of 403, a 19.5:9 aspect ratio, so a more narrow but taller form factor, and we're getting an 82.9% screen to body ratio. Now, this bottom bezel is a little bit bigger than the other ones, so that is a little bit annoying, but on the other hand, this phone still has pretty small bezels overall and does look like a pretty high-end phone. Now, up top here, we do have the hole punch for the front-facing camera, and that front camera is 32 megapixels. Now, definitely check out my full review video that I've done of the Galaxy A54 5G here on the channel to see a variety of different photo and video samples from all the various cameras on here. But overall, I've actually been pretty happy with the camera quality. Now, internally with this device, we're getting 128GB of storage along with microSD card expansion. Now, in 2024, I do feel like 128 gigs is still a pretty decent amount of storage. Now, I definitely feel like 64 gigs is not enough, especially with how big apps are nowadays. And also, if you want to take some photos and videos, or even maybe save videos for offline use, maybe on Netflix, for example, then you're going to want to have a lot of extra internal space to accommodate all of that. So at least with this device, having 128 gigs will give you a much better experience. And then, of course, if you do want to offload photos and videos, for example, to free up some of that internal space, then you can always add in an SD card. Now, more and more mid-range phones are actually dropping the microSD card expansion slot, so the fact that that's still here with the A54 5G gives this phone even more value. Now, unfortunately with this device, there's no wireless charging, so if that is a feature that you do like to use, just know that you're not getting that here. Now, with this phone, we do have face unlock via the front-facing camera, and then in addition to that, there is an in-display fingerprint sensor, and that does work very fast and smoothly here. We'll try that one more time. So very reliable, so I'm definitely glad that we are getting an in-display fingerprint sensor with this device. Now on the back of the phone, we're getting a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle camera that can capture images at up to 123 degrees, and we're getting a 5 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. So one of the things I like about this phone is that even though it is meant to be a mid-range device, we are still getting many of the camera features that you tend to find with much more expensive smartphones. Now, if you're looking for a quick and easy way to access the camera app here on the A54, all you have to do is just double press on the power button, and then it'll immediately pull up the camera app. So here's how things look with the main rear camera right now. Now keep in mind though, you can see up top here, it does say 12M, which means that it will capture images in 12 megapixels. But if you tap up here, it'll then switch things over to 50M or 50 megapixels. So by doing this then, you can actually capture 50 megapixel images with the device. Now the reason why that's not the default is just because 50 megapixel images take up a lot more space on the phone, and Samsung just assumes that most people are not going to be needing or wanting that feature at all times. Now one cool thing though is that if you want to lock the phone to that feature, you can actually go to the settings here, then from there go down to where it says settings to keep, and then enable high picture resolutions. And then now with that enabled, every time you open the camera app, it'll default to 50 megapixel images instead of 12 megapixels. But then from here, we can tap on 0.5 to access the ultra wide angle camera. We can then go over to the More tab to access the macro camera. And then with macro, you can get very close up and have the object be in really good detail. So we'll take a photo of this Lego, for example, and you can see how much detail we're actually able to get by using that feature. Then from there, we can go over to portrait mode to get those nice blurred out backgrounds. You can also pick the amount of blur you want. So if you want less blur, you can do that, or more blur, you have that ability. And then flip around to the front facing camera. There's me right there. We can take portrait selfies. There's even an option for a group selfie, so it crops out slightly. And then we can also take standard selfies as well. So that's nice too. Now with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, this device has 6 gigabytes of RAM paired up with the Exynos 1380 processor. Now overall, I do prefer Snapdragon processors over Exynos. However, I've actually had a pretty good experience when using this phone. From time to time, it can heat up a little bit, but for a mid-range phone, and especially if you can get a really good deal on this device, I do feel like it does perform at least decent enough that most people would be happy with it. Definitely for the more main fundamentals of using a smartphone, such as phone calls, text messages, watching video content, going on social media, all those various things are perfectly fine here with the device. Now I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 6, and here are the scores that I got from that test. And I made sure to do a fresh test here after updating the phone to Android 14, just to see if that maybe slowed things down a little bit. So you can see here, I got a single core score of 792 and a multi-core score of 2825. Now overall, I won't say that's the best score I've ever gotten with a mid-range smartphone, but I suppose everything's relative, and what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to see how the A54 5G compares. Now I did actually run a benchmark test under Android 13, and here's a screenshot of that, and you can see the scores were a lot higher here. So I'm not sure if the phone's just way slower now, or what's going on, or if Samsung should have done a better job optimizing the performance with the Android 14 update, but you can see here's the original score. Now with this device, we are getting 4K video recording with both the front and rear cameras, and that is at 30 FPS. And then this phone does feature a 5000 milliamp hour internal battery, along with 25 watt fast charging. Now make sure though, if you do want to actually charge this phone at 25 watts, that the actual wall adapter that you're using is compatible with that charging speed, because many wall adapters simply are not, and they're a lot slower than that. Now with this device, we are getting NFC for tap and pay. We're also getting IP67 dust and water resistance, which means this phone can go underwater for up to 1 meter for up to 30 minutes. And then finally, we are getting stereo audio with the device, which means that sound comes out of both the main speaker on the bottom, and then also the earpiece when you're doing things such as watching video content or listening to music. So it's definitely a nice premium touch that does give you a much more immersive audio listening experience here with the device. Now taking a closer look at the hardware of the phone, on the left side we have nothing, on the right side we have volume up, volume down, and the power button. Then up top here we have the noise cancelling microphone, the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card, and then on the bottom of the device we have the microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and the speaker. And then on the back of the phone we have the triple camera setup, Samsung logo, and that's pretty much it. So in conclusion, there are definitely a lot of things to like about the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, even now in 2024. I think this phone is still a worthy option and definitely worth considering, and I have a feeling that you'll definitely be able to get some really good deals on this device, and especially if you happen to look on eBay and buy one used. But this is Kevin here, this is the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G in 2024, and I will see you in the next one. Take care and have a great rest of your day.